Oh, I'm sorry. All rise for the flag salute. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, Councilmember Murray, I hope you don't feel so lost way over there. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Murray,
Present.
Councilmember Payne Donovan,
Present remotely.
Councilmember Sonmore,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall,
Here.
Councilmember Woodard,
Here.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright,
Here.
and Councilmember Ryan asked to be excused.
Move to excuse Councilmember Ryan.
Second.
So he's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So Councilmember Ryan is excused. We have a lot of people out there tonight, and that'll be, it's on the agenda, it's not right now. First thing on the agenda is public comment. Oh, there you are. Do we have any public comment?
No one has signed up in person. If there's anyone in the online audience who has a comment, please use the hand raise tool. Going once? Going twice? There are no public comments.
Great, thank you. So next on our agenda is the consent calendar. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve the consent calendar items A and B.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more out in the audience.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All opposed? And so that passes. So now we move on to the recognition of the former finance director, Ron Swanson. His whole family is here tonight, except him. But with that, we'll have that explained. Andrew, City Manager, would you like to?
Yes,
introduce this?
thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. All of you know how important a city finance director is to the well-being and the financial integrity of the city. And as important as a finance director is to the city council, oftentimes that person is even more important to the city manager because he keeps the staff out of trouble and keeps the finances in proper condition moving forward so that the job can get done. I'm very pleased this evening to be able to acknowledge a former finance director who served the city of Mountlake Terrace for 18 years, which is somewhat of a precedent-setting tenure for a city manager. He was here from 1980 to 1998. And this came to my attention because I talked to his wife, Betsy Swanson, who I'll introduce you to in a moment. And she explained to me that he also needed to get some credit from the city for the design of the city's logo, and that's the city's logo that's in use today. And as a conscientious city manager who's always skeptical of claims from people, I did talk with her permission to the former city manager, Bob White, who had actually been city manager for 25 years from 1967 to 1992. And Mr. White, who still lives nearby and has a son and a grandson living in Mountlake Terrace, was very pleased to tell me his story. And he referred to his very capable finance director, Ron Swanson, as he referred to him as a doodler. He was a doodler, and because he was a doodler, the city manager thought, okay, well, if we need a new logo, let's ask the doodling finance director to do so, which he did. And the finance director came up with the logo, and since roughly 1985, that logo has been used by the city of Mountlake Terrace. And this is attested to by your longtime city manager, Bob White. So this evening, what I would like to do, with the council's blessing, is to have the council acknowledge the contribution of Ron Swanson to the city, not just as a longtime finance director, but as the designer of our city's logo. And I will add that unfortunately, Ron is in a hospital this evening, so he's, as much as he wanted to be here this evening, he's unable to be here. But he sent a whole army of people in his place. And so Mrs. Bessie Swanson and kids and grandkids would very much like to share in the recognition for Finance Director Ron Swanson and be able to show him a video clip of the recognition that he's getting. And hopefully the council may be willing to even share in a photo opportunity for him. So that's my presentation. And Mrs. Swanson, would you like to say anything to the council?
We,
You're very welcome. And doodling is a good thing, because when it creates budgets and long-time records for the city, it's important. If you'd like to use the microphone, feel free to.
Should I say it again? Okay, all right. Well, I know that Ron just wants to send his thank you for being acknowledged for his doodling. He had a good time doing it, and it meant a lot to him when he would see it on every night going home on the water tower and on everything that was in the city. The city has done a good job of using that logo, and it's beautiful. And when he's from, of course, when it was the old building, and so when we came to see the new building back in September, and we saw how you used it on the building, it's beautiful. And thank you very, very much for acknowledging him for it. I just wish he could be here. Oh, he is. He's right there.
oh my gosh. Did we want to do a photo?
May I ask
Oh, go ahead.
a comment?
Hi, I'm Terry Strauss. I worked with Ron Swanson. I started in 1987 in the finance department. Back when I started, we didn't have PowerPoint presentations. Ron had a flip chart. What he'd do is he had, for financial reports, like a financial budget, there would be characters. That was his idea of a PowerPoint, I guess you'd call it. But that's when I knew he had a very artistic talent. So anyway, I'm glad you're acknowledging his contribution to the city of Mountlake Terrace, which he loved very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the family? Does anyone from the family want to?
Would council, Mrs. Swanson, would you like a photo with the council?
Unfortunately, we're missing two people. One is on Zoom. Oh, go ahead, Rory. I didn't see your hand go up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just apologize to the Swanson family for not being able to be there tonight, and appreciate the ability to be here remotely. And just as the new guy on council, and as a former municipal staffer in a different city, it must be said, I really want to say thank you to Ron, and thank you for all the work that he did beyond just doodling and creating our very, I think, well appreciated city logo. I know he probably put in long hours making sure the city functioned and its priorities were met, and just want to honor and respect that. And I'll stop there, but wish I could be there with you tonight.
Go ahead.
Mr. Swanson, if you're listening, in high school in 1980, I had to come up to council meetings when it was the old building here, and I was talking to a friend, and they remembered you as well. And then I started on the police commission in 1997, and so you were still here as well. But I just want to say thank you very much for your service. We know that being a financial manager is extremely difficult. You carry the world on your back for a lot of the different items that are going on in the city, and keeping the budget balance is not a it is extremely a difficult thing to do. And so we honor you tonight, and we wish you were here. We wish you well. And from one doodler to another, I am so happy. Maybe someday I could, I'm not very talented, but I doodle. And when you said that, it just warmed my heart. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? So how about anyone in the family? If not, we can go on to photographs. All right. You want us down there? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're going to take a picture. Do you mind moving the chairs? Right here? Yep, with the flag in the background.
Are we allowed to all go up? I'd like to take a seat up there. I could.
Take a photo? Yes.
Oh, thank you for the logo. I love that. Swanson, get well soon. Looking forward to seeing you back in your feet around the Mountlake Terrace.
You can go where I am. So glad that technology allows you to be That looks good. I even see council member Payne Donovan. Ready? Excellent.
Thank you very much.
I was like, what's going on?
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Did Dad get that whole thing?
I did, yeah.
Nice.
Do a video.
Hi.
I told Janella I'd
Okay.
time because she's going to be in her office.
So next on our agenda is a proclamation to, in remembrance of our traffic engineer, Marc Seferian, who passed very, very recently. Should I? So I'll go ahead and read this. Does anyone want to say something about Marc before I read this? Like who he was and what he did, and because he was our traffic engineer for, and it's probably in the proclamation, but
They're the ones who wrote it. The people who knew him best here are the ones that contributed to the proclamation.
okay. I'll go ahead and read it first, and then if anyone wants to say something about Marc, we can have that happen. All right. Proclamation of the City of Mountlake Terrace in remembrance of Marc Seferian. Whereas Marc Seferian was a civil engineer for the City of Mountlake Terrace who cared deeply about this community, its people, and his fellow employees. And whereas Marc earned bachelor's degrees in physics, studio art, and civil engineering and a master's degree in transportation engineering, and worked in both California and Alaska before returning to the Pacific Northwest. And whereas Marc spent the last 5 years of his career working to upgrade Mountlake Terrace's transportation infrastructure by implementing needed safety and accessibility improvements. And whereas Marc was an advocate for himself and others and dedicated himself to helping improve employee morale through flexible work hours, equitable pay, and other enhancements to employment and conditions. And whereas Marc shared his knowledge of engineering principles with coworkers and enjoyed mentoring our new hires and less experienced engineers. And whereas Marc was sharp and cunning in a playful way, and his quick wit and sense of humor always made others laugh or fear being fed to his cat spooks. And whereas Marc possessed a deep love for art, film, music, travel, snowboarding, and gourmet cooking, and had a genuine appreciation for beauty and creativity of these forms of expression. And whereas Marc was kind, caring, compassionate, genuinely interested in getting to know a person, and created meaningful connections through his empathetic nature. And whereas Marc was loved by his coworkers, friends, and family for his personality and ability to bring joy and light into the lives of those around him, leaving indelible impressions on the lives of many. And whereas Marc loved his family deeply and is survived by his mother, Jan, his sisters, Linda and Susan, and his nieces and nephews. Now, therefore, I, Kyoko Matsumoto Wright, Mayor of the City of Mountlake Terrace, do hereby proclaim March 20th, 2023, as a day of remembrance for the significant contributions made by Marc Seferian on the behalf of our citizens. So we'll let that sink in. Does anyone want to add anything?
Can I just,
Go ahead.
when you said it was written by the people who knew him most, you can surely tell. Thank you. That was very, very nice. Exactly what we wanted. So thank you. That was beautiful. I remember talking to him when I first met him because I worked with somebody named Seferian, and I was trying to find out if they were related, and we'd go back and forth. And when you said he was kind, he was very kind and gentle and just a lovely human being. So thank you. If you can tell everybody who wrote that, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, it just makes me want to have known him better. Okay, so next on our agenda. Oh, Rory. Oh, I'm sorry. You had your hand up again. Go ahead, Rory.
That's all right. Thank you, Marin. I'd just like to share to the body and to Marc's family, I had a chance to work with him when I was on the planning commission, and even though we didn't always agree on everything, I really appreciate the time that he put into doing the work for our city, and all the similar to my comments to Ron and his family. Just want to honor the work that we I think to a degree take for granted from folks like Marc and staff, and to lose him so suddenly and not be able to say goodbye or better, share our appreciation for him. I think I just wanted to, honor his commitment and the work he did on behalf of Mountlake Terrace and its residents.
All right, thank you. City Manager.
Madam Mayor, if I may just add, we all remember just a few months ago when we were so appreciative of the successful $5 million TIB grant that the city received, and we, of course, acknowledged Marc in a quiet sort of way because he was a quiet and unassuming person who didn't look to grandstand or take credit for himself. But my recollection of him as a short-timer here, who has only been here for 5 months, my first week here, I met with all staff in this very room to just introduce myself and what I stood for, what my values were, and what I'd hoped to accomplish over a few months. And I made very clear that I had an open door, that any employee who wanted to make an appointment to see me could simply do so. And I do know from past experience, employees are very reluctant to do that because they're concerned about chain of command and their supervisors, and they don't just do something like that lightly. But Marc was an exception. He requested an appointment, and he wanted to talk about issues that he felt were important to him about employee schedules and morale of employee and the work that needed to get done. And so we spent a good hour and a half, and I was very gratified that he chose to take that step and to share all his thoughts, which then became part of my plan for the following months. So he made a contribution very recently in that way.
Thank you. Okay, so before I move on, did I miss anybody? Okay. All right. So next is a proclamation in recognition of Ramadan. And, okay, did you want to, you can go down there.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to actually invite Commissioner Dean to join me at the public comment podium. Thank you.
Okay, because it's much bigger than my phone.
Yes.
Start at the top, yeah. Proclamation of the City of Mountlake Terrace recognizing the commencement of Ramadan, the Muslim holy month of fasting and spiritual renewal. Whereas Ramadan is regarded as a time of reflection, and whereas Ramadan is the holy month of fasting and spiritual renewal for Muslims worldwide, and is the 9th month of the Islamic calendar year. And whereas Ramadan lasts 29 to 30 days, based on the timing of the crescent moon, and whereas Mountlake Terrace Muslims join Muslims from across America and around the rest of the world in observing the month by fasting each day from the break of dawn to sunset, and whereas the daily breaking of the fast, called iftar, at sunset is often celebrated by family and community gatherings, and whereas the end of Ramadan is commemorated by the Eid al-Fitr, which translates to Festival of Breaking the Fast, a joyous occasion marked by sharing sweets, gifts, and good tidings with family, friends, and neighbors. And whereas Ramadan reminds us that Islam has always been a part of America, and Muslims have made extraordinary contributions to our country and to our city as healthcare workers, teachers, small business owners, volunteers, and among others. And whereas the American Muslim community is among the most racially diverse faith groups in the United States. And whereas the city of Mountlake Terrace is home to a thriving Muslim community that we appreciate their many contributions.
Thank you. Did you want to speak at your?
Thank you, Commissioner Dean, and thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention briefly my appreciation to Commissioner Dean for bringing forward the proclamation request as part of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission, and appreciated the Commission's support of that and the Council's support of that and the City's support of quickly turning that around, and just really, really grateful to have you here and be able to read this proclamation this evening. So thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I just want to, oh, there. Go ahead, Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Oh, well, thank you for letting me interrupt you, Mayor. I'd just like to share my appreciation for Commissioner Dean and Councilmember Murray for making this resolution happen so quickly, and just would like to say my wish a happy and meaningful Ramadan to all of Mountlake Terrace's Muslim residents, and also honor the fact that we have a very active and important part of our community in the Masjid Umar Al Farouk Mosque there on 56th, and I'll stop there. But, thank you.
Okay. All right. So all I was going to say is I am glad that we're educating people about Ramadan. One of the things that was in that proclamation is about fasting. And when you know more about other people's cultures and such, you're more helpful when people are in need of, with Ramadan during fasting. When my son was traveling all over China dancing for a singer, one of the dancers was a Muslim dancer, and I without thinking joked, wow, when they're traveling and you have 2 days in a row of daytime, it must really be hard, because then you can't eat or drink anything. And he just said, that's really true, Mom, because he had to make his own traveling schedules, because he had to, you couldn't go 2 days without food. So it just makes it hard on the person. And so whoever is hiring somebody should really acknowledge what their needs are during their religious holidays and their cultures. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Okay. So we'll move on to the next. And that will be the review and approval of the amendment number 2 to the Monopole land lease agreement. Thank you very much, DIC committee.
Well, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. I'm Jeff Betts, the Recreation and Parks Director. And tonight, the item before you is an amendment to a land lease agreement for wireless telecommunications equipment. So first, just a little bit of background on the original lease agreement and why we are here. The site of the lease area is city property that's just adjacent to the water towers that zone public facilities. And that property address is 22108 58th Avenue West. In 2013, the Public Works Department performed an inspection of the water towers and found that they needed to be recoded, as well as some other potential maintenance requirements. So that was going to be very difficult with a bunch of telecommunications equipment on top of the water tower. And this is the 2.5 million gallon tank that we're talking about. So on top of that tower, there was AT&T and T-Mobile equipment, and as well as a shed and some racks of equipment on the ground. So that location is ideal for telecommunications equipment, and really just because the more height is a better signal for all of our wireless equipment. So really a lot of companies will look for places that have that topography. So at the time, the height of the water towers really helped. So to achieve that height, we took a look at trying to issue, and we did issue an RFP for a vendor to construct a new wireless communications tower, or as we call it, it's called a monopole. So a lot of people ask what that is. What's a monopole? Well, it's just a metal pole to put telecommunications equipment on top of. So Tower Co. was selected, and that agreement was reached in 2019 and council approved. They constructed that 195-foot tall monopole that's just adjacent to the 2.5 million gallon water tank. The telecommunications equipment have since moved their equipment off the water tower and onto this new tower, the new monopole. The original agreement called for 1,651 square feet of city property being leased, and there was a scaled fee system depending on the number of companies that co-located on that tower. So currently, that monthly rate is about a little over $3,000 per month. Well, recently, another company approached us and TowerCo about co-locating on that tower as well, and that's Dish Network. So that would require additional ground lease space to accommodate their electrical needs. Really, they're kind of tapped out for electricity in that area. So the existing ground lease space wouldn't be sufficient for the equipment that's necessary, including a power vault, a transformer vault, a junction box, as well as some bollards. So that total space needed is about 280.5 square feet. And so we calculated the existing space per square foot and applied that to this new lease area that was necessary. It comes out to about $521 per month in addition. So if this amendment number 2 is approved, TowerCo would be required to pay that extra amount on top of the existing $3,069 per month. So if council gives approval, then staff will work with that contractor to get access to the site, because it is a secure site, the water tower location, and let them perform functions, including all that underground conduit work and power requirements that are necessary. Does council have any questions about this amendment?
Do we have any questions? Okay. Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report. I think mine's a pretty straightforward question, which is if you're adding more space, is what I think I just heard you say, so literally on the ground, we're taking up more space. What's the impact on the park? I don't actually walk through Jack Long very often, but I don't recall it being grandiose in size. So I just want to make sure it's still a usable park from a resident's perspective. I appreciate the dilemma we're in and the revenue stream, quite frankly, but I want to make sure it's still an actual park at the end of the day.
Yeah, this is adjacent to the park, so it's actually within the water tower site. So it's utilities area. So the reason that I'm giving this presentation is since I'm parks, right, it's adjacent to that park, but way back when that was part of Jack Long Park, and the fencing area for the water towers got expanded and took some of that property. So we had to in turn find property to purchase to replace that property because it had been purchased with federal and state funding. So once we did that, we accommodated that use, but I'm still continuing that process of just, since I did the original agreement, I'm still pitching that. So that's why I'm here for you. It's not a part of the park, but it's part of the public facilities district. I know it's confusing that I'm doing it, but.
Okay. What are the council's wishes? Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve and authorize the city manager to execute amendment number 2 of the Monopole land lease agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We don't need discussion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. All opposed?
Aye. Yeah.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next is the review of the approval of the 2023-2024 budget amendment ordinance with the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA. And
Madam Mayor and members of the council, Finance Director Janella Lewis will be joining us momentarily.
oh, there she is.
Oh, she's on Zoom, I'm sorry. A brief word of introduction for the context of the budget amendment ordinance before you. As you recall, in the study session of last Thursday, there was extensive discussion about ARPA in general, what ARPA had been used for thus far, the balance remaining in ARPA funds, and the need to make some decisions within the next year in order to expend them before the deadline. And then there were also a series of staff recommendations, even though that they exceeded the total available dollars. The purpose of that presentation was to allow the council to hear what project priorities in the area of capital one-time expenditures would be recommended by our executive leadership team. After going through that discussion, as you recall, there was consensus among council members that we should move forward with some, but not all, of the recommendations. The recommendation to moving forward was in relation to about half. And so very specifically, first was the emergency generators for City Hall and the police with the split funding with fire, which was $550,000. The second was in Public Works, the pavement preservation program, but not at the full amount, which was, I think, a 4-year program, but instead a 2-year program of $1 million and $1,215,000, which included the asphalt hot box vehicle. Third was emergency response improvements for Public Works, which included the 800 megahertz radio system. Fifth was the body camera system for the police department at a cost of $250,000. And then sixth was information technology at a lump sum of $150,000 pending the completion of the Strategic Information Technology Plan, which is in the RFP stage right now. So those were more or less agreed to by consensus, with one addition. There was discussion about the Transportation Safety and Accessibility Improvement Program, specifically the Safe Routes to Schools program for traffic calming, and the need to complete the intersection of 216th and 48th, where there's currently actually a missing piece, a sidewalk that needs to be completed. And so the dollar amount for completing that project was $200,000, which is certainly less than the $460,000 of the total program that was recommended. So assuming we include that last piece, which was the last item you discussed last Thursday, the total would be approximately $2,565,000. And so that's a brief recap of the discussion that took place at the study session Thursday. And what I'd like to do is ask Janella to walk through the ordinance that's before you so that you are in a position to take action if you choose to do so on moving those pieces forward, again, with the understanding that there's more ARPA discussion to take place at a later date. Janella?
Yeah, so good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Wall, Council, Janella Lewis, Finance Director. I added usually what you see on the ordinance is the exhibits, the budget summary by fund 23 and 24. And so those are exhibits A3 and B3 are the changes. And then C1 and C2, C1 is 2023, and that clearly shows the ARPA funding, what that was. That $89,000 is from 2022. There was a budget amendment that was adopted there, and that's just fixing the 2023 budget to reflect what we had decided to do with that $89,000. And that was for the scholarship. I think it was for recreation program. And I also reduced, so you can see the ARPA programs is 4.6 million on page 9. And that 4.6 is what the amount we were going to transfer to the ARPA fund. And I'm reducing it by 600,000, which is the 2 years, 2023 and 2024, that will stay in the general fund because those are for the general fund programs. And then you can see the information technology for 75. I just split 150, right down the middle. And then the body cameras, 250,000. And the transfer, and then you can see on street construction fund, the transfer from the ARPA fund would be 715,000 in 2023. And that is for the pavement preservation project and the truck mounted asphalt hot box for $215,000. And you go to page 10, and then there's ARPA Fund 140, and it shows the transfer from the general fund would get reduced. And the transfer to the street construction fund is $715, and the capital improvement fund is $550,000. And that leaves that first year of 2023 with a remaining ending fund balance of $2,732,425. And then capital improvement fund 322, you can see the transfer from the ARPA fund would be $550,000. And that is for the city hall generator, PD generator, and the fire district, the fire station generator. And again, that fire station generator is going to be split if the annexation passes between RFA and Mountlake Terrace. And then you have Exhibit C2, which is 2024. And I went off of, and on these amounts that you're seeing here are based off of just like what Andrew had stated, off of what we had agreed on. I know there was 50,000 in there for a park or a arts plan, but I wasn't really clear on whether you guys wanted to include that or not, so I didn't include it. But I did include it was supposed to be 460, but I included 200 because that's what you guys had agreed on. If Phil had looked at the director, Public Works director had looked into something. I kept it in there because it's easier to remove it than to put it in. So I can do that for that 200,000 safe routes to school traffic calming. So again, you have the 75,000 for information technology, 200,000 for a radio system that we need. And then the street construction fund is going to have a transfer of 700,000 and 500 for the pavement preservation project and 200 for that traffic calming, the safe routes to school program. And then again, you have the ARPA fund that's transferring to 700,000 to the street construction fund. Clear as mud.
Okay. Does anyone have, I noticed that you're confused.
No.
Questions? Does anyone have any questions? Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thanks, Mayor. This isn't necessarily a question. I thought this was much clearer than mud, Janela. Give yourself some credit. And that it reflected the conversation we had last Thursday. So we're appreciative of that. And, I think, you all heard my, bugaboo about the 216th project. I will state it again for the record that I think if we are building safe routes to school projects with, state grant money to get kids to school safely, that the standard at busy intersections, again, where I've anecdotally seen lots of speeding automobiles, that there should be a stop sign in those designs for this type of infrastructure investment. So, I'll be supporting this ask, but really want to state that the burden should not be on pedestrians, much less vulnerable school kids, at walking to school. Their flashing lights are great, and people driving cars should be stopping for them. So with that, just wanted to get that in one more time.
Thank you. So on another note on that, once the sidewalk is put in all the way, all of the people who live in the apartments, instead of jaywalking in the middle of the block, can now, with the sidewalk, go all the way to the corner and then cross the street safely. Once this extra $200,000 amount is, that's needed for that little fix. So I support that. Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess thank you, Janella. And I recognize this is a quick turnaround to make this come together. I guess the challenge is having it clear as to what we're actually funding. I mean, your presentation and what you stated, which we'll assume is for the record, it will help explain that, but it's not as easily followed in the materials provided. And for instance, we're looking at materials that were provided during our work session that have not been updated with the actual new numbers, except for the ordinance itself, which doesn't lay out the actual projects or pieces that we're funding, as far as I can tell. It just provides the numbers that you discussed. So we'll assume that what you stated during the presentation is on the record for the public hearing that we're going to open here momentarily, so that's going to be our record. But it would be nice to have that, maybe we can have that provided to us sometime later this week, because I recognize the need to be able to move forward with this now, so we can get, that was the whole idea, is to get started on some of this stuff and at least get a significant portion of utilization of the ARPA funds and its going for its intended purposes. There's some additional opportunities for us to provide funds for additional projects that were listed and pending further discussion. But it would be nice to have what you just stated verbally provided in some sort of a quick and easy updated, numbers as far as what we're actually funding, projects we're actually funding, if that makes sense. And the other thing is, I did note that, and thank you, Stefan, for providing the information on the arts funding strategic plan. So for those of you that took a look at that, there was $10,000 appropriated for Arts Commission, which my intended use for that was for the strategic plan update. And so I would be supportive of, and Janelle, it sounded like you did not include that in this, or you did include it?
I did not include it.
Okay, so.
Because I wasn't really clear on the instructions in regards to the arts.
Okay, so I'm going to offer an amendment as we go along to add to that funding to be able to get us started on that, our strategic plan. But the $10,000 we appropriated during the budget process was intended, in my opinion, for that strategic plan. And it looks like we need an additional $40,000 to be able to use for updating the strategic plan, which I will offer as an amendment. 50 total, right? So, which I'll offer as an amendment as we go along. But I just wanted to state that for the record. And then, Janella, just to clarify, what you indicated, you did provide funding for that you weren't sure on, but it was easier to put it in than not, was for the 216th Street project. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that is included in there. And did we ever get any clarification from Phil about where status on funding that? And okay, and so then I don't know if now's the appropriate time we should be opening the public hearing for further discussion on this, but I guess we'll wait for direction on.
Yeah, if I can respond, Mayor Pro Tem Wall, I do understand you're saying it would be helpful to revise the staff recommendations from the memo from last Thursday to actually list those funded items, so it would be clearly a matter of record, and that's, which I did verbally tonight, but we can certainly do that
in memo form. And then City Engineer Rich Meredith is here to make a few comments in regards to a question that came up about the Safe Routes to School program. So, Mr. Meredith.
Yeah, I apologize for not getting the information sooner. We've been scrambling to try to verify all the numbers in our estimates. And Jennifer, I actually threw the latest numbers into the council material folder if you wanted to pull it up. Otherwise, it's hard copies. And so it looks like that. So what I was able to find is that with the funding that we currently have from the water and the storm and the grant, we can still build the project as currently identified. And if we added another 200,000, I compared all the estimates and I found a couple places where it looked like we could trim down the numbers and things could have been doubled up. And so I think for 200,000, we can get the project done, making that sidewalk connection. The caveat is I think that we need the money in 2023 because the grant we were going to go to add this summer. And if we're going to advertise for the 3 schedules that we'll have to do for the improvements, we'll need to have all the funding. So I broke the estimate into 3 parts. There's the main project, which is the grant funded part. And then as part of our review for complete streets, we realized there's a water main that we can combine with this so we can get some contractor efficiencies. The same thing, yes, that's the document, thank you. The same thing is with adding the sidewalk and the wall. If we do it all at the same time, we can, again, take advantage of the efficiencies of having one contractor out there. I have to keep it in separate schedules, though, just because of the color of the money. The original one is state grant funds, so we want to keep that separate from the utility funds, the water main replacement. Since that's utility funds, we have to charge sales tax on it. And then the last part is if we decide to go with the sidewalk connection, that's what I'm calling Schedule C. And so you can see that we're pretty close with the total estimates for Schedules A, B, and C to the funding that we have available for it. No, I got it. So the total funding available was $1,018,000, and then the total funds in the estimates was $1,020,000. So we're pretty close. We tightened up on the contingencies, but we've already got some design work done, so I think we can be a little tighter on the contingency funds and the contract administration. We were going to do some of that in-house.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for that explanation. So just following up, part of what we were asking about was timing, and I think you provided the answer to that, which was, I was interested in finding out about additional grants. So there's a new federal grant available, but we wouldn't be able to apply for that until next year. And it looks like these, some of the funds or grants that have been awarded to us would expire if we don't tap into this opportunity now this year, and so we don't have time to wait for that potential grant funding. So that just assuming that that's correct, that means we do need to move forward with this. So then following up on Janella, what you had indicated is we had you did include in the budget ordinance how much for this project?
200,000 in 2024. So if I'll add that 40,000 for the arts plan, I can add that, and I can also move the 2020 from 2024 to 2023.
Okay, so
then it'll change in the schedules if you want me to do that.
Okay, so that helps. So thank you for that information. So in the clarification, Janelle, and so we can make sure we do that in the adoption of this as we move forward. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so my question, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure, go
So I just want to make sure that I have it right. So I'm going to add 200,000 to 2023, move it from 2024 to 2023. I'm going to add 40,000 for the arts plan instead of 50. And then you want me to update the memo. Do you want me to update the PowerPoint slides or just the memo?
Just
And
something
the
in writing. Memo
expenditure
is
list. I
fine.
can update the expenditure list also.
Yeah, just the memo, but just to clarify, I mean, that's the amendment I was going to offer for the arts funding. We have to actually discuss that before moving forward. I mean, I would love for you to just include that before any vote, but I think we need to have discussion on that as well before. But yes, I think that's the idea of what we're looking for. Thank you. And no, for me, just something in writing as far as updating the memo would be helpful once we've done this to indicate what we've actually accomplished. I don't think we need in the presentation until we start considering for future funding. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Murray and then Salmore.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Janelle. I appreciate you walking us through everything. Quick question for me, I guess, given we didn't really dig into it on Thursday because we hadn't included it as part of our conversation for this evening, is that arts strategic plan number. Do we have any background, and maybe it's an Andrew question, but do we have any background how we got to that $50,000 estimate for that body of work?
I don't offhand, no.
But Jeff, I have our old one at home, and I think it was $40,000 or $30,000 from the last one. It's from 2008, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're correct, Councilmember Salmore, that it was in that neighborhood, and that was about 14 years ago. So I don't have a quote in hand to come up with that dollar amount, but I know that 50 will get it done, is what I'm thinking.
As long as we get it done. Councilmember Salmore.
I'm just going off of the art thing. I would love to be able to take that money and invest with creating a stage down at Ballinger, because we know we've had that art plan, and it was a wonderful art plan, but it would be nice. Recently, another city just built one, and you can make it as much as you want, and it takes some money, and I'd love to see us take some money from the hotel motel tax and also put towards that stage. And that's something I hope that we can talk a little bit about, because that's a big chunk of change to put an art package together. So maybe we can talk to the art commission and talk about that, because a stage down there would be beautiful. But my question was, and I'm trying to go back to find it, and it was very nice meeting you as well and putting the numbers together, but the original amount for 48th, what was the original amount? Wasn't it 500,000? I'm trying to find it.
467.
And I
460,000.
460, where am I? Can't find it on my, here it is, 400. So I remember when we talked about it, reducing it down by 200,000. Where did the 460 come from, and how can we do it? Where's that 260 fall short of, and where we're making that up at? I just want to make sure, because this is something that's been, the citizens really want in the area, and I think it will be really enhance that area and just for the safe routes to school and slowing down traffic and doing a lot. But it went from an ask of 460,000, and we talked last week about maybe cutting it in half. And so then you're only getting $200,000. Where did the $260,000 make up? Is that where you're going into the water utilities to make up some of that funding, did you say?
The original estimates were done in 2019, I believe, and there was a lot of assumptions that were built into those. We've done some design, so we've solved a lot of the uncertainties, and so As we get further along, we can reduce our percentage of contingencies. Some of the unknowns are now known. So what we've been doing for the last couple days is trying to polish that up and see how close we were with the original estimates. There was also the time that was involved up until now has already been paid for, but it hasn't, those funds haven't tapped into the water funds or the sewer funds. And so those funds plus the grant are still intact. So I think the original ask was looking at, from day one till now, what the estimates were. But since we've already spent that money and we still have the rest of the funds available, the money spent so far have been about $150,000, plus realizing some of the reductions in the contingency funds and the design funds, we were able to shave off, almost 260. It'll still be tight, but I think if we do some of the work in-house, we can still make that work. So.
And Phil mentioned something about getting it done, this project would get going right away?
Yes, we're going to do the final design of it probably in the next month or two. We're hoping to advertise for work this summer before, so we can take advantage of when kids aren't walking around out there. It may be wrapped up in the fall, but we're hoping to get this out to bid in the next 2 months.
2 months?
Yeah,
and
that's our goal.
Is there any way, I know that neighborhood, do we normally post a sign out there that the work's coming? And when would a sign be posted out there?
We normally post a sign like that. I try to have them out there within maybe 4 weeks or so. It depends on when we get the contractor on board, but there'll be something to let people know there's going to be construction out there and any advance notice of any lane closures or road closures.
Wonderful. And it's very nice meeting you, and thank you very much. I know you said a lot of that up front, but I was still working on other stuff and trying to listen. And so, but it's just an intersection that's taken a long time for us to get to. And I know the mayor was talking about the importance of it in that area as well. So thank you for that. That helps a lot.
Thank you. Anyone? I don't see any more questions or Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Did I hear a second? Oh, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And now all opposed. Public hearing is now open. And I'm trying to get to that page. Do we have anyone in the audience?
If there's anyone in the online audience who would like to comment at this time, please use the hand raise tool. Going once, going twice, there's no comment.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? So it's now closed. Next is Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to adopt the 2023-24 Budget Amendment Ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we need to have discussion?
Yes, please.
So does anyone have discussion? Yeah. Oh, you wanted to? Was that for discussion? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, as previously discussed, I would like to offer an amendment to the proposed budget ordinance to include, well, first of all, to move the $200,000 from 2024 to 2023 as discussed, and second of all, to add $40,000 for the Arts Commission Strategic Plan, Arts and Cultural Strategic Plan update.
Erin, did you have any comments to the art plan? Oh, you just made an amendment?
Yes, I move to amend.
kind of wanted to talk about it for a minute.
Well, yeah.
So are we at discussion right now?
I'll second it just so we can have additional.
Okay, I didn't think I heard a second.
Right.
So, okay, so now it's been moved and seconded.
And now we are discussing the motion to amend.
Go ahead, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Wall, your amendment, and do think that we obviously need to move the money for the 216th Street project from 2024 to 2023 to take advantage of those funds. And very interested and open to having a conversation around the arts, kind of making sure that we have a plan around arts and culture that moves us forward there. I think it's to Councilmember Sonmore's question. I don't know if this feels like whether this is the right path or not, given we have a plan in place that I know. I wish Councilmember Ryan was here because I know he's pulled it out several times over the last couple of years and been like, we have this plan. Why aren't we using this plan? So I guess if we are going to invest in a plan, I would love to understand how we're going to utilize that plan and whether, we need an entirely new plan or maybe we could just refresh the plan we have. So would love to have that conversation, and I think there's a conversation to be had there. So for that reason, I think I would not be supporting the amendment right at this time and would be very open to kind of bringing that back as part of our continued conversation about how are we moving things forward with the rest of our ARPA funds and making very hard decisions around lots of worthwhile places that we could be investing in our community. So thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Sonmore?
And I'm all for the arts getting that. It's not that, but I would like to talk to them first and just see about bringing our old plan forward and what we can do out of there, because the issue is if we don't have staff to put these activities together, then what are we planning the arts for? Are we planning to, maybe have a stage, a performing arts stage at one of the parks? Are we planning to have more or a better location for the art show? But kind of bringing that art plan back and just looking at what we have and talking to the art commissioners, I think would be the way to go. If they wanted us to come to a meeting, or I'd be happy to go with the plan and just kind of go over it. But I'm for them getting the money, but I just want to make sure that we're not getting another art plan just to have another art plan. And they've all been around a long time, and I know they have these great ideas, and I want to hear what they are first. And I will be supporting them in the future, but I kind of want to have, I'm going around in circles here. I'd like to have a little bit more dialogue with the art commissioners first. Because otherwise, if I vote on it tonight, I think it sounds like I'm voting on another art, going out for another art plan. And I'm just wondering if that's what we need, or is it finding more space for the art show, or is it putting money towards a bigger picture? I guess when you've been here a long time, you see it kind of come and go around. And the older I get, I see how things circle. And, there is an established art plan that we need to talk about why we never got to it, why it was there in the first place, what were the top goals of it, why were or weren't those goals carried out, and are we meeting the needs of our art commissioners? So that's where I stand with that.
Can I go with Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I think Councilmember Sonmore and Councilmember Murray touched on some of my thoughts as well. And I just add that, it seems as though there needs to be a bit more conversation and process for the art plan ask. Without being redundant, I just add that we, are talking about a lot of capital projects that are fairly cut and dry compared to the art plan, and I especially we'll play the new guy card one more time and say I'd appreciate some more background on the art plan process and engagement with commissioners before we support them in this ask. So I'll be asking that we not move forward on this amendment tonight.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm happy to withdraw the amendment and resubmit a different amendment for the 200,000. But part of my understanding, first of all, we need to update our strategic plan, our horticultural strategic plan, and we need to implement it. And so that's kind of the purpose. And we've been kind of discussing this for a little while, for actually a year. It's been part of our city council goals. It's been part of the proposal we had offered 6 months ago or 8 months ago now for utilizing ARPA funds as far as a proposal or an idea. It's something that we've talked about with the Arts Commission during the interview process as far as the need for updating and implementing it. But I agree. I mean, let's have more discussion. Let's focus on it. But part of the reason for doing it is so it gets back on the plate. It's now, 12, 13 some years old. And you're right, we haven't done anything. The reason it needs to be updated is because it was done and then sat on a shelf, and we need to do something with it. We need to implement it this time around. So part of the reason for doing the update is to reignite that discussion and process and get us re-engaged in our arts and cultural plan. And anyway, but the other part of it is, I think part of the reason that my understanding is that of the $10,000 that was set aside during the budget process is the reason we only needed $10,000 because all we're doing is updating a plan that was already in place. So I guess I'd like to see us take another look at what is necessary to just do a review and update of the current plan that has been sitting on the shelf. And I'd love to have further discussion with the Arts Commission and all of us about how we want to move forward with that. So with that said, I will withdraw my previous amendment and offer up a different amendment to move the $200,000 for the Safe Street currently in the 2024 budget ordinance and move that to 2023.
Second that.
So it's been moved and seconded. Do we still need to do a discussion on this? Councilmember Woodard?
Yeah, but I'm not sure it's necessary now, but I also don't want us to lose that we've grabbed onto a rattlesnake tail here. Let's not just let go and go, oh, it wasn't us, it was us. I'm now jumping over to an email that was sent to us in the PowerPoint presentation, so I apologize, I can't toggle in between, but you do have access it through your email. And I want to start with, all of this is about our 2023-2024 proposed changes that we did adopt. And start with the $10,000 that Mayor Pro Tem was just talking about. It's actually listed as $10,000 for 2023, another $10,000 for 2024, and that's mapped into the General Fund 011. And then so that's $10,000. And then let's jump up to, if you were able to jump up with me on the PowerPoint, to the boards and commissions estimated needs. And let me first start with, we're not getting gaslighted, Mayor Pro Tem. It does say right here, contracting with consultant to assist DEIC with work plan, events, and meetings, $30,000 in 2023, $30,000 in 24. ARPA for 2 years. We did finally get that cleared up in email, but nonetheless, last week or so when we were asking that question, we were not losing our minds. We did remember, as we said, that we agreed that some of the commission's money was coming out of the general fund, but neither here nor there, other than to remind us that that's $60,000, which I am not sure how that plays out, which is where I'm going with this in the bigger picture, which is the Art Commission, $20,000 for 2023 and for 2024. Planning Commission, $10,000 and $10,000 respectively. Recreation and Parks, $20,000 and $10,000. Now I'm asking that because I think what we also need to do here, go back to the rattlesnake tail imagery, is that I'm not even sure we're going to agree in about 2 months from now on how that money is supposed to be spent. Because as I understood it, the monies were to be pooled together, and that somehow was $50,000. But then that $30,000 then would have been for consulting, even though it does say events in there and meetings. which is just my way of saying, I thought I already heard a no as I was talking, which is my point, that I think we need to revisit how did we disagree to this money, where they're funded notwithstanding. As I understand, it's all one budget. I get all that. But nonetheless, I feel like we're going to lose sight of what our goal was in funding all of these folks, and that we almost funded another $40,000 is an example of that, because I'm not sure where that $40,000 came from either. But again, I feel like we probably should revisit all of these sections, although all of them have been funded by our own actions in the past. So that said, I like the new the new $200,000 moved up, but I also don't want us to just lose sight that I think we need to revisit this commission allocation, just so we're all agreeing on what we think we agreed to a couple months ago.
Steve, where was that one page that you just had up? Where's that one at?
Is that this here?
Yeah.
So it was in the email, as I can tell you.
Call for the question.
Okay.
I just punched.
So are we ready to call for the question?
It jumped right to when I did it. So.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what did you ask?
I just asked if we're ready to call for the question.
Yes, and we'll bring that up.
So this is in your last,
So to clarify, the amendment that's on the table for voting is that moving the 200,000 for safe streets from 2024 to 2023. That's it.
that's it. Okay.
And it's just the amendment that we'll then have to turn around and vote on the budget ordinance as amended.
So for that, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that motion carries. Next. Whoops, there is no next.
Yep.
There is. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. So now well, the motion is on the table, so we're considering and voting, unless there's any further discussion, on the budget ordinance as amended.
So that's what we're voting on this time.
Right.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
This is already on the table.
It's already on the table. Okay, so no more discussions? Do we want a discussion? Go ahead, Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in the spirit of clarifying, maybe Janelle is best to do this. Can you quickly just say you're about to agree to buy this at this amount, this at this amount, this at this amount, and then we know we're all talking the same in numbers and dollars and cents? The draft ordinance, because we just, in essence, that's what we're working from right now, right, as the draft ordinance. And I just want to hear us say we're buying police cameras at $250,000. We're buying, and just go down the line, so we all agree that this is what we're about to do based upon the new amendment.
C1 will be in the general fund, $75,000 for information technology, $250,000 for body cameras. In the street construction fund, we'll have $500,000 for pavement preservation project, $215,000 for truck-mounted asphalt hot box, $200,000 for the 216th, 48th safe routes to school traffic calming project. In the ARPA fund, we will be transferring to the street in 2023 to the street construction fund $915,000, and we'll transfer to the capital improvement fund $550,000. In the capital improvement fund for 2023, we'll transfer $550,000 for City Hall generator, PD generator, and a Fire Station 19 generator. For Exhibit C2, you will have in the general fund $75,000 for information technology, $200,000 to purchase a new 800 megahertz radio system. In the street construction fund, you'll have $500,000 transferred for the pavement preservation project. And in the ARPA fund, you will have $500,000 transferred to the street construction project in 2024 instead of 2020.
Okay. Does that answer your question? All right. Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess just a question around the IT piece, because we discussed that was something we wanted to ensure was held until we finished our strategic plan. I guess I just want to make sure that as we're talking about, I appreciate Councilmember Woodard's question about ensuring we're all aligned, you know, and I guess similar to that, I guess I want to just make sure that we have alignment, that those are funds that we are going to deploy after we have a strategic plan in place so that we kind of know the direction we are headed.
Yes, that is correct.
Great, thank you.
Okay, shall I call for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I think we're done with this one.
Yep.
All right, so next is the city manager's report. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. A brief update on the leadership transition in the city manager's office. As you're aware, you approved the contract that's been signed by Jeffrey Knighton with an effective start date of April 17th. He and I have been in conversation and are planning to meet next week on 2 different days, both the 29th and 30th of March. My involvement here ends on the last day of March, and so that's the reason we're coordinating our meetings prior to that date. And Stephen Clifton, Assistant City Manager, is ready to be the acting manager during that 2-week period prior to Monday the 17th. So we are well underway for a smooth transition. And that would conclude my report unless there are questions about that.
Are there any questions? No, I guess not. Thank you. Next is the council liaison reports, and shall I start over there with Councilmember Woodard?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Let me begin with 3 acknowledgements. First and foremost, happy spring equinox to one and all, as well as happy International or World Day of Happiness. And as we heard earlier through our proclamation, an early, respectful, and instructive Ramadan to all who celebrate, and equal learning opportunities for those who have not had the opportunity to celebrate. Now, into my liaison reports. On the 9th, I had the honor of joining several of you at the ribbon cutting for one of our new businesses, Mobilize Physical Therapy. Welcome to the neighborhood. I know you've been here a while, but it was wonderful to be able to formally do so and do a little bit of ribbon cutting. On the 11th, a couple days later, I participated in the fundraiser for the Edmonds School District called Edmonds Comedy Night, and I will revisit that when we get to new business, but just wanted to say that was a wonderful night of raising quite a bit of money and spirits for our students. On the 14th, I participated in coffee chats through Economic Alliance of Snohomish County. This was the State of Utilities, PUD. The recordings are available. If you're not able to make those, I encourage you to sign up, and then they'll just send you the recording. Watch it at your leisure. That said, their next one up is on the 28th this week. Or is that next week? We'll go with that's next week, which is Women in Business, a wonderful panel being set up for that. On the 15th, I will just say, usually, again, I try not to blend my work and council together, but I think it applies here, which is I participated in the Linwood Chamber of Commerce's luncheon. And I bring that up just to say how excited I am for our Mountlake Terrace and Briar Chamber. And this was just another example of things that these folks can do. They brought in a speaker from Workforce Snohomish County who was once again looking at housing and employability levels of different sectors of our community, and just another way to educate the community. And I know that our chamber is probably chomping to get to do things like that as well. That said, on the 16th, I was with all you fine folks for our study session, and in the spirit of other ideas, I was also at the Sky Valley Chamber happy hour beforehand up in Sky Valley, which again is just a throwback and call to our chamber. I look forward to being able to join you all soon. I apologize I wasn't able to make this second one either. Third time should be the charm, though, if timing works out. And then most recently, over the weekend, the 18th and 19th, I participated in the various town halls for the 21st, the 44th, and the 1st districts, LD districts, and then ours, the 32nd, is tomorrow. For 7 o'clock, I believe, a virtual town hall. I should probably have checked that one before I said that out loud. It might be 6 o'clock, but nonetheless, the 32nd is doing a virtual as well. You can look to their website for that information, and that's the end of my report.
Thank you. I thought that I would go to Councilmember Payne Donovan before I finish the row here.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. I appreciate the opportunity. And my report is quite slim. I think I'll probably blend a bit of my new business and in my council member report, but would just reiterate my request for conversation about assignment to the regional committees that council or that we all might be appointed or assigned to. And then also sort of moving along, would just point out that today the State Economic and Revenue Forecast Council put out their report by which the state budget writers make assumptions for the state budgets that will be introduced here in the coming weeks. And would just as a reminder to us for our state legislative capital budget asks, that the state general fund budget and the capital budgets that follow are being written right now. So might be a good time to follow up with our legislative team and our legislative delegation to make sure our capital requests are being kept alive and wind up in the past budgets. But the main takeaway for this year is that we're near enough close to the budget assumptions that the previous forecasts projected. So hopefully we're in with a shout in terms of getting our projects funded here. But that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Sonmore?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have much to report either, just that the Park and Rec and the Left Ones meetings were held last week.
Thank you. Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. On March 15th, I joined the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission for their monthly meeting. I will just start with saying, given that's a new assignment for me, I am so impressed by the breadth of the work that they have engaged with and are engaging on, and just really am incredibly appreciative to each of them for all of their work to move things forward. It is not easy work, and I think that they have shown a lot of progress, and I think there's a lot of great updates, some of which I'll share here and some of which I'll share under new business. And I would expect that we will continue to hear things from them as they are starting to get things to a place where they're asking for it to come back to us as a council for conversation and consideration. So a couple of updates that I think would be helpful for our group. One, thank you again for the proclamation and all of the support there, particularly from city staff who helped put that together on very short notice. Very appreciative of that. They continue to work on the trespass ordinance that we asked them to do work on, and so I would anticipate, they anticipate an update next month at their meeting, so I will have an update for you here next month on where they're at in that process. They are in kind of connection with the proclamation that we made tonight. They are having some conversations around how we could potentially plug in to to some sort of Ramadan connected event here this month. And so I will keep you updated there as well. Other stuff that's coming through that seems like it would be, well, I was going to bring it up during, I guess I'll preview it a little here. So the Step Up Conference is a conference that's put on by leaderships in Snohomish County each year that we have sent folks to, I think since it began a handful of years ago. Both, I think, us as council members have gone as well. I think we definitely have had council members go. We've had city staff go as well. And so they are looking at sponsoring that event as part of an effort to, I think, spread the word that we in Mountlake Terrace we care about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are interested in doing the work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we want folks of diverse backgrounds to know that Mountlake Terrace is a place that they are welcome. And so I think the question for us is that something we are interested in doing coming from us, or is that something that we are not interested in doing as a council? And then they will kind of explore what that could potentially look like as a commission. So I'll bring that back up under new business, but we'll just give you a little bit of time to think about that. Other stuff, they're having really great conversations around youth involvement, which always makes me really excited and happy. So some conversations around perhaps getting together with some of the ASB leadership from over at Mountlake Terrace High School and having some opportunity to bring them in and help them kind of learn about what we do and help learn more about kind of their thoughts about the community and the community that they're going to be becoming adults in the not too distant future. And so really excited about that work. They're doing great work with Chief Ka in developing some welcoming signage in various languages over at the police station. They worked with one of our sergeants to put together a great pamphlet for folks who maybe are not familiar with 911 and maybe they're not from our country, right? And so like when emergencies happen, like what do you do? And that came from, I think, one of the cops and clergy conversations where somebody had identified that they weren't sure if they should call 911 in a situation where 911 could have absolutely been helpful for them. And so I guess I just wanted to share some of the work that they are doing because they are touching so many different, I think, pieces of the work so many pieces of our city and community, and I just want to make sure that they are getting the acknowledgement of around all of the hard work that they are doing. And I think they've, set a really great foundation that I'm excited that they are going to get some support from a strategic perspective as we move forward with, we went through the RFP process, and I know that is work that is ongoing, that the commissioners and the city staff are engaged with, and imagine we'll have an update there as well as far as they put the RFP out for folks diversity, equity, inclusion professionals to come and support that work. And so I would imagine we'll have an update there as well in the coming months. So I think that's it. I've talked a lot. So I was at our work session as well, and happy to be here tonight. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Going back to March 6th, had our monthly meeting with the city manager and the mayor. On the 9th, attended the mobilized physical therapy ribbon cutting, and on the 16th, had the work study session. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mine is also very short. It's on the 8th of March, I had a Zoom meeting with the executive and all the mayors in the Snohomish County. And on the 9th, I also attended the ribbon cutting at the Mobilized Physical Therapy, and I'm really glad that we have different types of businesses moving in and into our city. And then on the 10th, I also attended Councilmember Woodard and I attended the same event, but on 2 different nights. And that would be the comedy night with Kermit Apio. and it was a fundraiser for the kids of the Edmond School District. And it was very, very good. It was a really great night of comedy and clean. So I really enjoyed that. And so that's the end of my report. And so next is new business. Does anyone have any new business? Go ahead, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Woodard. I appreciate it. So I did want to go back. So the Step Up Conference, again, is a conference focused on helping members of our community. I think city staff, again, have attended in the past, and I think a plan to do so in this year, as well as some of us on the council have attended in the past and plan to do so, I believe, again this year. And so that is at the end of April. And so I don't have all of the details yet, and I will say sometimes this is where it's hard when we have once a month commission meetings because so much happens in a month. So they're looking into getting some additional information, but believe sponsorship starts at approximately the $500 level for sponsorship of the conference. And so as part of that, you are included in those sponsor materials. And so again, the why behind the ask is really to expand our reach as far as when we are thinking about recruiting city staff, talking about the fact that we are an inclusive place in an inclusive community to the municipal employees that are going, to the community members that are going, to the other council members that are going, and really just, again, trying to ensure that we are talking about the work that we are doing in a way that helps those around us to better understand it. So, that is the ask, is that is that something we would be interested in exploring as a council on behalf of the city holistically? And again, if not, I think the commission will continue to explore that conversation themselves, but wanted to make sure that they weren't moving forward with that in a way that didn't give us the opportunity to say, actually, we really want to do this on behalf of the whole city, not just the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission. So I know it's a little bit of a squishy ask, but would love thoughts.
Did you have your hand up, Councilmember Payne Donovan, for this or something to add that's different?
Well, it was for something else, Mayor, but I'll just take the opportunity and say that I think this is a great opportunity for council to support the ask and the opportunity as Councilmember Murray laid it out. I think we should support our commission in this work, and if it's a coordinated effort, then all the better. But I think this is really key to recruitment and building a diverse and open sort of hiring practice. Not that we don't have one already, but I think it's a great opportunity given the local effort going on here.
Thank you. Anyone else to add to this? Do we need? I don't know if we're going to make a decision tonight, but does anyone have any comment on Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I don't think we're ready to make a decision, but I think it's a good idea to look into it and get more information and consider.
When is the event this year?
The event is April 28th, and I believe we all have information in our inboxes. If you are interested in going, I think Jennifer has offered to help us with that process. I think it's been a little bit since I've looked at that email, but there is registration information that has gone out to all of us in email if that's something that you're interested in.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to go on record that I think it's a wonderful idea. I've supported ideas like this in the past. I would probably have to refrain from voting since I was your co-host last year and your host, if not co-host again this year. So I'm probably too close is what I'm saying in that particular voice. However, I also wanted to address your question earlier about is that something how would they fund it? This is a perfect example where even if the council does say we can do this, they still have access to their own money and should still feel like they can support financially or fiscally if they so chose to. That I would hate for us to set this up as a either or, either the council does it or we don't, or we do or we don't, however that plays out. That this is why I said we held on to a rattlesnake's tail earlier. Let's sort that out now. because this would be a prime example of getting the other commissions perhaps behind this as well, because this particular event does cut across quite a few sectors. And at the end of it all, I do think it would be a great message from this council. But again, I would probably refrain, or whatever you call that, from voting just under the circumstances. Recuse. I knew there was an R in there. Recuse myself from voting this one time, knowing that it does have my full support.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor and council members, my understanding is that the DEIC has already requested formally that we cut a check, if you will, for $500 for sponsorship of a table by them. And so if I understand Councilmember Murray's comments is, if the council would prefer to have it be a joint sponsorship, for instance, it doesn't, as Councilmember Woodard said, it doesn't have to be either or. But with that amount of money, we can make that happen, unless there's a concern on the part of the council that they'd rather not see that happen or rather not participate. And so I'm getting a sense that the council would like to be participating as opposed to observing, but I don't want to be presumptuous if that's not the case.
So the DEIC committee has already requested?
Yes.
And then the money comes from where?
Well, in the budget, the same budget that we would use for conference expenses. I mean, we can't do this every month and expect it to work, but to do it at this point in time for local conferences, we can make that happen without breaking any budgets.
Did you find it in the email?
No.
Oh.
Something else that we also should be following up on.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Can somebody point me the email so I can try and figure out what we sent out? What day was that? When was that email?
That work real well with the council. So it's just, so when you mention emails, they kind of blend in. Do you have the date of when that was?
I don't offhand, but I'm sure we can find the info and send it back out so folks can take a look. It's not till the end of April, so we've got a little bit of time.
And of course, sponsorship does not require that you attend.
Right.
But my understanding of sponsorship, and Councilmember Murray will correct me if I'm wrong, is that this, would be published as a part of the the sponsorship. So the city of Mountlake Terrace, either its DEIC or its council or both, would be referenced as a sponsor, which is a promotional thing which shows all participants the support that you'd be giving to the Step Up Conference. Is that, Councilmember Murray, is that your understanding of what we're talking about?
Did you just say a sponsorship is 10 people? Is that what you said?
No, it's various dollar amounts, but the one we're talking about is $500. I believe it's the minimal level of sponsorship.
Oh, I thought you said for the $500 that registers 10 people. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
I didn't bring the email with me. Do you know offhand, Councilmember Murray, does the sponsorship include some number of people?
I don't believe the sponsorship includes, there would still be the separate registration fee, and I think the registration fee, if I recall, was fairly inexpensive. I can look it up right now, but I think it was $50 or $60. I mean, it was not, let's see. Hold, please.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it sounds like a great idea. I think we need a little more information to understand what maybe is the best path forward. And maybe it was sent out by email, but it's all blending in with all the other emails right now. And so just, I think having us, and since there is no time urgently, we don't need a decision tonight. We could make a decision in the next couple of weeks, if that's all right.
I will say, I think there's two questions on the table here, right? There's the sponsorship piece, and then there's the do folks want to attend piece, right? I think the do folks want to attend piece is not an urgent one. There's plenty of time to register. I do think if we're going to spend money on sponsorship, the sooner we do that, the sooner that we are part of that, those sponsorship materials as people are going through that process, right? So I do think that that is a question where if folks are in support of that, and to, you know, the city manager's, I guess, point, it sounds like the DIC already submitted a formal request to move forward with that. So I think it is, do we want to be part of that process? I think that ideally is a question I would love an answer on tonight. And then we can get information out to folks around whether or not this is, you know, information out about registration so that if people have the ability to attend and would like to, that they can get registered.
So this is to add the council onto this sponsorship, because the EIC has already requested money. Does the council need to vote on their money, on their request?
To me, if that's the way they want to spend it, that should be their,
It's on, but I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
We were just going to kind of debate out the money for, so I don't know what, we've put parameters around the monies for the boards, but they do have money for it, and I would just say go ahead and use that money for registration and getting a seat at the table. I mean, that sounds like the great opportunity to do that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And agreed. But it sounds like there's another question as to whether or not it's on behalf of DEIC or the city itself. And that's what I'm just trying to find the information that was maybe emailed out to us that
there's no sponsorship email. There's no information in your email about sponsorship. So that was something that just came forward and that they were requesting more information around from the conference.
Okay.
Where did the email come from?
There's not an
no email.
Yes, but for the event, did it come from the city or did it come from someone?
I don't know, to be
Okay, because
honest.
I can't find it.
We'll send out the registration email. Okay. I do have the details pulled up. It's I was incorrect. It's $80 a person for general admission.
And maybe if you could just bring it up at our next meeting. Sometimes emails just get buried in here, and we're so used to getting the information, you know, kind of like as a report along the ways that, and maybe we'll define more of how we like to be communicated to. But just for me, if you don't need to send me anything, if you just want to talk about it at the next meeting, I think that would be great.
Are we talking about attending the conference? I guess I'm sorry, and I apologize if I'm not being clear here.
You just said you'd send us an email about sponsorships and stuff, and
I didn't. No, I didn't. So sorry. I think there's two questions on the table. This is not. It's not our conference. I'm happy to share the information. It's leadership in Snohomish County. They do it every year, and I just pulled up the information online, and I'm happy to send out the registration info. And I think there's a secondary question. DEIC is moving forward with sponsoring the event. Do we want to participate in that jointly as an effort from the city? Or if not, and we're not ready to commit to that, it sounds like they are and are going to move forward with that. So really just the ask is they wanted to ensure that they gave us the opportunity, if that was something we wanted to be a part of around the conversation of sponsorship, that we had the opportunity to do so. If we're not ready to do that, that's fine. And it sounds like Andrew has what he needs to move forward with the sponsorship from the commission.
And to be clear, as Councilmember Marc just said, there's a difference between the registration and attendance is a separate issue, and that's kind of a nominal fee, and we can deal with that. And we're always pleased if commission members, staff members, if council members, if others want to attend important regional conferences, that's a good part of doing business. The sponsorship is a slightly different issue. If a department wanted to do a sponsorship, it's something that I would feel the need to come back to the council and bring that forward. In this case, it's a commission. So these are commissions who, members, of course, appointed by this council. And so I don't believe there's a need for a formal vote. However, I'm pleased this is being discussed openly. If there's objection to such a sponsorship by the city's commission on DEI, then I would want to know that. If there's no objection, then I'm in a position to move ahead and allow that to happen.
Do you want to go before Rory?
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rory.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just state for this conversation that I'm fully supportive of $500 sponsorship of the Step Up Leadership Snohomish County Step Up 2023 on behalf of the city, be it through the DEI or the city of Mountlake Terrace. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think it's important effort that Councilmember Murray raises.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I mean, I don't object. I guess I'm wondering, and I wish we had more time to discuss this, I guess, but about the value of the city versus the commission in endorsing this. I mean, it's a great program. It's a great, whatever. So, I guess, is there value in the commission, allowing the commission to put its stamp on it as it was discussed, so that it kind of gets some recognition on its own, or is it better for the city to put our stamp on it as a city supporting the program? I guess that's kind of.
Well, even if the DIC committee has their name only, it will have the name Mountlake Terrace, City of Mountlake Terrace DIC Commission. Correct?
I would assume,
Yeah.
yes.
So they would know which city they're representing. But right now, it's probably, maybe it's a co-sponsorship. It's the City of Mountlake Terrace and the DIC Commission is sponsoring.
Right, because the city of Mountlake Terrace is paying for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Through and who's sponsoring it. So I think sometimes we have these big debates that last a half an hour at the end of our meeting. And this is something that, when we have a weekly report or something that we need to tell the new city manager about, is like, if you bring that to him, then when he does the weekly reports, he reports out to us on that. And it's something that can be decided very quickly, and because it sounds like we're going around in circles, and I think we all mean the same thing. Sometimes we're hearing it. I misunderstood you said, or a little bit earlier, and so, we'll work those tweaks out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I guess agreed. I mean, let's just wrap this up and say yes. Basically, I mean, I think the challenge is, and the issue is getting back to, and I want to get back to what Councilmember Woodard mentioned earlier, part of the ARPA discussion, budget discussion. Is a lot of this is communication and getting information in a timely manner and making sure that we're not hit, like what? We're having to make a decision on this?
Yeah, no surprises.
And we don't really know. Yeah, so I think that's, a different discussion. For the purposes of this, for the time being, I would say let's go. And then let's come back to further discussion on information so that we aren't blindsided.
Can I jump in? Definitely not my intention to blindside folks. So if this does not feel comfortable, again, I don't think there's any necessity for us to have to make a decision tonight. And I think if folks are feeling that concerned about kind of the appropriate course of things, which I do think goes back to, I will say the DEIC was very clear, and I will say I'm still trying to get clarity 3 years in how we make things happen. And so I would love to revisit that conversation, because there is not a clear course of action, I think, particularly for our commissions and our council members to bring things forward that are outside of kind of our normal processes. And I think particularly when things come up in a short time frame. So again, I think they're comfortable moving forward. They also just wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity as a council to participate in this, opportunity that they see as an exciting one, if we wanted to. And if we don't want to, that's okay too.
So basically, they want The council, so how does this read when it, okay, so I'm looking at the pamphlet or the program, and the program would say sponsors, and then the sponsors, when it comes to this, will say the city of Mountlake Terrace and the DIC.
Yeah, DEIS.
DIC.
Ours.
And the Mountlake Terrace DIC Commission. I'm just trying to.
Be inclusive of it all. I see what you're saying.
I mean, I don't think it's been designed, so I mean, I think it could. I mean, I think it sounds like there's a lot of questions here that maybe we're not going to have clarity around tonight. So, I mean, I think we let the DIC move forward. I think they just wanted, again, to give us the opportunity, if we as a council were excited about, partnering with them on this, that we had the opportunity to do so. And they're good either way. So.
They're moving along on it.
Yes, they are moving along on it. So it sounds like there's enough, I guess, hesitation tonight that we should just give them their space to move on it, and we can have conversations in the future about how we, I guess, how things get brought forward in a way that feels better for everyone.
Well, I think it might be worthwhile moving forward for the city council to have a policy on sponsorship, since this isn't something that, it doesn't sound like this has come up that often before. And again, individuals can sponsor whatever they want, but when they're asking the city to do something, it's a little bit different. What I'm hearing is that the city and the DIC are connected, obviously, because the city appoints the DIC and the city created the DIC. And so since it's my office that I think is going to be expected to send the sponsorship form in, I would presume at this point to put the city of Mountlake Terrace and its DIC. So it would have both names there clearly, because I'm sensing that that's what most of you would like to see happen, instead of the DIC just to do its own thing. Please correct me if I'm misunderstanding that.
I mean, I think we need to be doing things as a city. And so that's another, I think there's maybe a whole nother conversation there. I think, and part of the challenge is, the reason we're spending 30 minutes on this probably very simple item is because you evidently have a request that we have not seen. So we're playing catch up and trying to make a sound decision based on very little information. And so I think that's but since each of us have various questions and we aren't really fully understanding exactly what we're doing, therein lies the challenge. And but my understanding of it is it's a great opportunity. We ought to join in and just say, yes, we ought to sponsor, co-sponsor, whatever this program, an event. But I'm doing that based on limited information and not having something in front of me that I can look at and say, oh yeah, this is great.
So normally, yeah, you would bring it forward.
Right, and yeah.
You're not on.
It's just, so I don't want to get hung up on this for this thing, because I think it is a great program and we're spending way too much time talking about something. We do need to spend time talking about process and communication and things like that. That's just,
We should talk about, because our city has not sponsored a lot of things in the past that I can remember. And if we're going to start doing this, I'd like to have a system. The commissions want to do something. They send a request into who? And does the council have to vote on it? So if we have it all in place, then next time it will be really easy.
Right.
When something comes up, it shows up in our email, and then it shows up at the next council meeting, and then we okay it or we don't okay it, but we know what we're doing.
And so now I'm getting confused again, because I think the app was the original, because that's what we need to do. But the original ask, Aaron, did you want us to go to that? Is that what you're asking?
I mean,
Are you asking?
I am not asking that tonight. No, no. The question before us, and I apologize that I probably did not start this in as clear of a place as I could have. So I guess let me restate my understanding of the DEIC's ask of us. So there is an opportunity, there is a diversity, equity, inclusion focused conference that Leadership Snohomish County puts on each year. It is at the end of April. They would like us to sponsor, to be a sponsor at the minimum sponsorship level to help get the word out about the fact that Mountlake Terrace is doing work around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and we are working to be a inclusive community. And so this is it's a conference that lots of folks, lots of leaders throughout our county go to, lots of elected officials go to, lots of municipal employees go to. And so they thought it was a good opportunity to get our name and who we are and our values out in front of those very important populations. So they would like to do a sponsorship. They've put in that request to do the sponsorship. They wanted to ensure that they did not step on council's toes in moving forward with that, and gave us the opportunity to, one, know that they're doing that, and two, if that's something we wanted to partner with them around, that we could do so. So the ask is around whether or not we want to partner with them on that.
So I guess I get confused. They want others to see that we have diversity?
They want others to see, yes, that we as a community, that is a value that is important to us, and we're willing to that we are walking, we are doing the work that.
I'm just, see how it, I'm going to stop now because I don't want to keep on going on. See how it goes on, and that's why, because they have their own pot of money, I'm thinking, why aren't they sponsoring it?
They
and
are
we don't have to go
sponsoring
through
it.
all this.
They are sponsoring it.
Then why did you just say that they wanted the city to sponsor it? Or
No.
is it out of their own, see, that's
No,
where
they
it
wanted
goes.
to
And
know if
that's why we don't do a lot of this at the end, just because nobody wants to look stupid and not understand what's going on.
No.
And so that's why when the mayor was saying, if we have these processes in place, it's just easier. And it's not your fault. I'm just using this as an example of different ways on how we can improve our communications with the city and us, because sometimes I feel so disconnected that I'm still trying to get on what they're still doing in the commission. And so, to me, I don't want to keep on blowing it out of proportion like Brian was saying, and we think it's just an ask, but we have all these questions, so.
And I think that is clear, and I think with that, then I would just conclude that ask with that there's enough question here that we are not ready to move forward with that partnership, so we will let them do their thing this time, and we will work on ways to improve communication and process that maybe clearly answers some of these questions that have been questions, I think, time and again for us, at least during my time on the council. So I appreciate all of the time and conversation.
Anyone else? And Councilmember Woodard.
Yeah, let me take the high road.
We're not taking the high road?
Yeah, no, I'm talking to me, talking to myself about how do I want to speak. Just, again, I'm trying to stay high level. That's what I should have said, high road, high level. This is probably the last time we get to say, I'm not sure how to proceed because we've given these commissions money. And I think this process question is good. And I'll just use as an example. My take on giving them money is that it would not come back to the council. They would be making decisions that they have to live by and stand up to if someone were to challenge or support. That wouldn't be a reflection on this council. That would be their independent act as a commission looking out for the betterment of the city. If that's true, then to me, that's what we're talking about right now in their ask. Is this the commission saying that this is what's important? Or, which is what the 7 of us represent, is it the city that's saying what's important here? Now, I don't want to get into whether or not conferences should have to have sponsors to exist. I'm not going to get into whether or not, why do you have to have an annual conference on racism? We're just saying, hey, here's the model that's in front of us. We've now given an arts commission, a planning commission, an RPAC commission, and a DEI commission money in which to go and look out for our best interest. My take on it is that's what they've done, which is why we're saying, oh, I didn't even know there was an ask. We shouldn't know. That's their responsibility. Perhaps the liaison might feel like she should have known, but it sounds like it didn't happen during that meeting, so why would you know, right? But nonetheless, I'm just kind of laying this out here to say, I think it's in our interest at this point in time to decide whether or not the city is speaking up for diversity in all its forms or not. Here's low-hanging fruit opportunity in which to do it. And here's the best news. Even if we don't, I promise you there's so far no way that's not going to happen. Because one of your council members is the actual host again, which means I already did this and we're still here. So whatever I said last year, it had an impact or it didn't, because here we are, which I'm just saying will happen again this year. And you have a commission that's already submitted access to their funds to say they want to do this, which will have the MLT logo, which still gets our message out there. Now, that said, internally speaking, I think it's in our interest to have some solid time together to talk process, but to also talk these bigger pictures about, is what Steve just said accurate? Do these commissions have the right to go and make statements on behalf of the city without coming back through us for approval? And those could be tied together, the process question, or again, us just recognizing, as I used the imagery earlier, that these are rattlesnakes, that we didn't necessarily see that way, but we're holding on to them now. So what are we going to do? So that would be my feedback, to say that I have no problem kicking this can down the road, but the DEIC has already acted, and I'm proud of them for doing so.
Go ahead, Laura.
So then I would take what you're saying and I would give it back to the city and say, city, what is our process for doing this? We know how we do it because it's not, we as a body can give that to the city and say, okay, bring us back a plan. And that's as simple as it gets. We already have a plan for hotel motel tax, and there's a process that they do. And so we should have a process in our files to say how the boards and commissions can spend their money as well. We shouldn't have to be deciding it up here on council. We should say, okay, city, we want a plan. Can you bring us back the plan and present it to us? And I think it's as simple as that, and that's when we get into dialogue. Well, I think that works, and I think that doesn't work. But I feel like we're up here with, paddling, and we need to just give that back to the city and say, okay, come back with a plan instead of us doing it. That's usually the way we ask for asks. We don't have to do it and plan it ourselves. That's what the city does for us.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess following up on Councilmember Murray's discussion as to where I guess I would feel more comfortable saying we agree with our DEIC on this and we are wholeheartedly endorsing this program. I was just trying to get information. I was only asking questions to try and understand what we're even doing. And so it's not because I don't agree with it or don't support it, and I would rather be on the side of supporting it. It's just feeling like I'm in a vacuum trying to make a decision quickly without information. I guess the message I would rather send is that, yes, we support it, and we're with you on this. That said, I would like for us, I agree with Councilmember Sonmore and Councilmember Woodard previously as far as the rattlesnake discussion on the ARPA funding and the budget and understanding what we funded. I think we do need to spend some time, and maybe that's for our council, maybe that's the topic for our council retreat. But let's make some notes on the fact that we need to revisit not this specific issue, but the process and the funding and the decision-making and plan and how we're dealing with our commissions and the funding for the commissions and what we budgeted and and co-sponsors. All of these things they're things that we need to have a better discussion and understanding of how we're going to move forward in the future. And I hate that we're having this discussion based on this item so that it looks like we're not fully supporting DEIC in our efforts, because we are, and we do, and we want to, and we should support it, and we need to say that. And it's just this specific asks got caught up in a process that we're all struggling with and haven't figured out. We need to figure it out.
And there's also, what we're trying to do is with a budget committee, there's things you can do, and then there's things you can't do. And also on boards and commissions, we've got rules in our municipal codes of what commissioners can do and what they can't do. And so that would be all in that presentation. Okay, commissioners, what are your liabilities and responsibilities? What can you get in trouble for? What can't you get in trouble for? What can you can't come out and do something against the city. It's giving you that structure and that empowerment of what you can do with your budget, how do you do it with your budget, and, what the council can support you on and the monies. But I think we need to go back, and we've had these presentations before for our boards and commissions, and I think we need to, ask the city, this is what we'd like, and they put the plan together, they bring it forward, and then that's when we have this open discussion on, because lots of other cities have these diversity plans already. And they're already doing activities and events, and I could bring you in a plan if you wanted to. I mean, there's a lot out there that we should be discussing, but it shouldn't be at a council meeting. It should be in a work session or in a council retreat.
Go ahead, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess one thing as we are talking about this kind of future state planning, one thing that I would name that probably needs to be part of that planning is that for each of our boards and commissions outside of the DEIC, we have staff subject matter expertise. And so I will name that one of the challenges with the DEIC bringing things forward is that we don't have that subject matter expertise on staff currently. So I had to work with one of our commissioners and look at what other communities had done to put together the proclamation we read tonight on Ramadan. There isn't, and so it is different than a planning commission presentation to us where we have lots of city expertise where they can give us a very detailed plan and report. And so I guess as we are thinking about that process and how to facilitate these things coming forward in a way that feels good and feels adequate for us as council members, I think we need to have that discussion very clearly around how are we empowering and giving staff what they need in order to be able to do the things that we are asking for? Because I think right now that is an ask that I'm not sure is a fair ask given how we have resourced staff. So I think that is just part of the conversation that we need to have as well, and appreciate that we are looking to find solutions that will help these conversations flow more smoothly in the future.
Staff for any of this? Is that what you're saying? I would ask staff to go find somebody to go put this together. We're not the body that does that. I'm saying push back, city, you do it. And I'm trying to support what you're saying, but that is not our job. It's the city's job to go out and do that for us. And so,
sorry, then I think the ask is city, what do you need?
And so I'm pushing back and saying, no, it's going to be done. And we're giving that direction to the city, and that will be done.
Well, Councilmember Payne Donovan has his hand up.
I won't I'll try to raise a distinct point here and just also point out that in a vacuum, the sort of question that Councilmember Murray raised about, city sponsorship of an event that would probably benefit the city, HR recruitment, et cetera, is a pretty standard practice across governments. There's already several local governments or Snohomish County local governments sponsoring this event, and I think it's a great way to get our name out there. So whether we need some more process around sponsorship, et cetera, I think it's something that's commendable, and perhaps not appropriate for us, but hopefully in the future we can have a process around sponsorship opportunities, be they sponsored by a commission or staff or from an external party. I think this is a good practice for us to be comfortable and better orientated with.
Okay. Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Since you overheard me say high road and high level, I'm going to show you what I was going to say otherwise. One, I just want to be clear, I don't think this is about a commission. I think that you've just touched upon it, Councilmember Payne Donovan, with this idea of sponsorship. And it was said earlier by our mayor that the city's not used to sponsoring. And as timing would have it, the two most recent sponsorship opportunities that almost mirror each other, which is why I was saying, let me stay high level. It was about 2 years back, or at least 2 Decembers back, where a council member actually did bring a sponsorship request for a beloved community. And we had this exact same discussion about process, about should we, how does that look? I mean, almost to the T, everything that we just talked about mapped on there, and we didn't have a DEIC at the time. So that's why I'm saying, like, this conversation is long overdue. It needs to be had, because now we do have a DEIC. I can let you know, our PAC is now aware that they have money, and they've shown interest in, hey, how do we activate that money? They had not been aware of that. I don't know what the Art Commission knows, and I don't know what the Planning Commission knows. But as we now have made it in this conversation much earlier known that we need to look at this money, I bet they'll know now, which again goes back to process. But I do want to be clear that this isn't about commissions and commissions money. This is about the city stepping up and making statements when it thinks it needs to make a statement, and us having a council that is consensus driven, perhaps for the first time have a little bit of tension around what that really looks like. That's that other road I was referring to, but at the end of it all, it doesn't erase the fact that we need a process, and I'm going to stick with my imagery of the night, holding on the rattlesnakes, and we can let them go and see what happens, or we can address this. So I'm hoping that in the spirit of it's never clear how things get done, and we watched that happen last meeting, which I'll have a funny comment another day, which is just to say, how do we get this on the calendar so that we can have this concerted conversation, be it down there at the quote-unquote study session or up here in the suits, which my understanding is these are the exact same meetings, so we can have that up here in suits, but if we want to have it down there in street clothes, so be it. But when can we get these on the calendar to have this discussion? And not about leadership in Snohomish County's sponsorship. Again, you're going to get free publicity the entire event, whether you want it or not, unless you convince them not to have me as your host. So please.
So we have a long list for the new city manager. And one of the first things that I'm thinking about right now is when can we schedule our retreat? But for sponsoring, we're okay. All right. So it's past 9. All right. Does anyone? We'll talk a lot of this later. So for right now, does anyone have anything else to add? Go ahead, Councilmember Woodard.
I almost hesitate to bring it up, but I'm going to. And it already was surfaced, so I just want to follow through. I am sorry I don't have my full facts, so feel free to laugh. It makes sense because it's about the comedy show. I'm pretty sure I heard that this was the 16th year of them doing this comedy show. So you'd have to check to see if those numbers are right. I know that my family, we've been to at least 5. So it could have been 6, but it seems like now I think we came late to the game. The point of this story is, although it's called, and it looks like Councilmember Payne Donovan knows that answer, but nonetheless, where I'm going with this is I think everybody knows how I feel about kids, how I feel about people volunteering, how people just leaning in and getting involved. Well, the success of this program goes to a lot of different people, but it originates with a Mountlake Terrace resident, Kermit Appio. I do not know him. I did have the opportunity to meet him for the first time backstage at one of the sessions, but I do not know the man, other than to say I've admired the work that they have been doing with this show in particular, and I'm a fan of comedy. And it just seems a little disingenuous to have, as we brought up before, have had quality people come in and really make a mark in their field, and us not take advantage of that and acknowledge that and celebrate that. My understanding is we had a violinist or a pianist come through that we should have.
Marc O'Connor.
Yeah, so I'm sorry I didn't know who that was, but I'm sorry you missed that opportunity. He's no longer, I think, in the area. But Mr. Appio is. And so I am making a suggestion here for now, as opposed to a motion, to figure out how do we celebrate these people who have been in our community all along, let alone are here now. That would be easy to just bring in and say something, but to get that formally going, because I am sure there are lots of names and people in this city that, in the same spirit of how LSC's sponsorship is going to say something, they just happen to live in our city, but we get to take advantage of that in a positive way, especially when they're doing great work on behalf of others than just themselves. So I'll quiet down. Looks like my fellow council member might want to say something.
Yeah, because I'm giggling, because that was a huge pet peeve for me, huge. I really wanted to get, we used to honor the basketball teams. I wanted to make sure at every council meeting, we were honoring somebody in our community, whether it's somebody from the high schools, the junior high, or Briar Junior High, Mountlake Terrace, bringing them in here, because I think that's part of being a community, and that's been something on my list, so I'll write it down, and we'll add that to the list of, because it's very, I think it's very, I don't know, it's something that I've been wanting to do for years, and we would do it, and it is a lot of coordination, but I think there's a way or a program that we can put in place that if people want to have somebody recognized, or if there's a process or something that we have parameters around, and we do stuff like that, because I think we need to honor people in our community, and I'm all for that.
Thank you. Go ahead. Oh, I didn't see your hand up. Go ahead. Rory.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll be quick and bring up something I forgot about in my council member report, but I think it's worth getting on the record. I, as I do most every month, attended the Ivy League invasive species cleanup crew in Veterans Park earlier this month. And just want to let folks know that I believe it's April 23rd, there's a volunteer spring cleanup at the Veterans Memorial Park, running from 9 a.m. to noon. And I believe that's will effectively be one of our city's Earth Day event activities. So wanted to get that on everyone's calendars.
And on that note, as the council used to feed the volunteers on Earth Day, and we haven't done it recently, I'd like to see that come back too. It's another list to put on the new city manager's things. I also want to add that within our city, we have our city clerk, and her dad used to work for NASA, and he is going to be speaking. So I would like people to know about that and to come, because it's going to be at our Mountlake Terrace library on Tuesday, March 28th, at what time? 6:30. So he worked on the Apollo 11, which is the one that went to the moon, and he also, can you explain what he did on the backpack? Well, anyways, I can't remember the names of the people, so is it Mr. Shepard? No?
He developed the backpacks that Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin wore during their moonwalk on Apollo 11.
And he's going to be talking about the other things that he worked on at NASA, and I understand that he's a very, very spirited speaker. And I'm looking forward to going to see this, and I hope that other people will show up too. Okay, I don't see any other hands going up. But there's a lot to talk about, and there's a whole list of things we need to have our new city manager start on. All right, so if anyone, if there's nothing else, I am going to adjourn the meeting. We're adjourned.